And we're back at it again with another live one for you Bi-Conics fanatics out there. And welcome to another edition, the premiere of our name change. Yeah, we're going through some changes over here. We got new members, we're changing names, and sort of things. But it is my distinct pleasure. I am your host, Mikey, and with me is my co-host, Will, to premiere our new show name for these NXT reviews, El Oso Loco. The boss and the and the crazy bear. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a fun one. But before we get into that, how are you doing, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I'm in a good place, and I'm ready to talk about this event because I watched this event on my lunch break at work today.
I loved getting the play-by-play as you were watching it too. I was just like, yes.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, and I was telling my co-host El Jefe over here that I actually took notes this time. And I'm going to tell you all a really, really, really sad story that I told him earlier. And that was I was watching this thing today, and I was watching it and taking notes at the same time because I didn't want to miss anything. And 3/4 of the way through that son of a gun, I realized you could pause it. Yeah. Boy, I felt stupid and old all at the same time. So yeah. But I said, I'm not going back. That's the old man in me. I'm not going back. Just keep moving forward. But yes, I'm doing great.
Oh, like as funny as that is like oddly sweet as well, I guess. But as you said, we learn and we move forward. Just like NXT kind of did with a lot of their feuds for this episode. So, to preface, for all the watching, listening, however you consume your Bi-Conics media, this week was one of NXT's special television shows. Normally, NXT tends to do a lot of these special televised events to kind of hold over until the next pay-per-view. Because unlike main roster, their pay-per-views are like bi-monthly, so it's like every month and a half, 2 months. So, as was stated on NXT last night, as well as last week's review, we're starting to build towards No Mercy on Saturday, September 30th, which is NXT's next big pay-per-view event, which is going to be a lot of fun. And to kind of hold over until then, we got some pretty fun matches tonight, while also trying to build towards the matches that we may or may not get at No Mercy. So, but overall, initial thoughts before we dive deep into every single piece bit by bit. For me personally, I actually enjoyed Heatwave. Now, when I say I enjoyed Heatwave, it's because I've been watching this new version of NXT for the last year and a half or so. So I'm used to kind of this format of, okay, we just had a pay-per-view. Now we're going to have a TV show, and then we're building towards the next pay-per-view. So I'm kind of used to the paint by numbers. I will say this has been one of the better televised like TV specials that we've gotten so far this year, only because this is really the big first TV special post main roster draft where main roster gutted the NXT roster. And so Shawn Michaels and crew had to scramble to try to piece together what was left and continue to build stars and storylines. And honestly, I think for the most part, they succeeded, though there was a couple of things I still got questions on, but we'll get talked about that when we get to those. So, I mean, I guess we should just jump straight in then.
Yeah. I will say that, and I was telling El Jefe this earlier, that, and I'm going to say it just like that, just so you know, that this one felt a little bit more chunky and like not as smooth as last week's event. And I don't know if maybe because it was like a special and they were trying to do something, but it really kind of didn't flow like the other one did, So that's I'm not going to get into the specifics, events, reigns, sessions, and all that, but the overall feel was very sort of almost felt thrown together for me. It was enjoyable, but it was I thought last week's was a lot smoother. I'm it's maybe it's because they were trying to put so much into they had so much to cover. But yeah, that was my initial at the end. I was sort of like, wow, that was kind of chunky. It was really kind of blocky. Didn't feel it just didn't feel fluid at all. So, but I mean, doesn't necessarily have to feel fluid. I mean, just saying that this one just had a different feel to it than last week's, and I guess it was supposed to. But yeah. So anyway, back to you.
Yes. So one of the things I love about with NXT's pay-per-views and their TV specials, we always get some sort of intro to like break down, like talking about what to expect on the card tonight. And this one opens up of a pool party of all things with your NXT tag champions, the family, Tony D'Angelo and Stacks kind of just hanging out in the pool and Tony D'Angelo just running down the card. It's so cheesy, but I loved it so much.
I did too. I totally. When at first I was like, "What is happening right now?" And then I was like, oh, "Okay, this." I didn't realize that it had started. And I was watching it, and I was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe it's like a commercial already," because the commercials were annoying. But yeah, when they got into it, I was like, "Okay, this is fun," because it was like, oh, they're on the phone. I'm thinking they're in different locations, and then here he comes out of the bush and jumps in the pool and all that. And I was like, "Oh, that was cute."
It was so corny. I love it. I think my favorite one still, I'm trying to think. Honestly, I think my favorite one still has to be Halloween Havoc because it's so corny because that's like the Halloween themed show. And just the introduction is always just cheesy. Oh man, and I mean, Halloween is right around the corner. Like, if we get Halloween Havoc this year again, I'm like, oh, I cannot wait for Will to watch this one because it is the most like Halloween spirit esque vibes of a show.
I love that.
And I hope they get Shotzi to be the host again because I mean that's her bread and butter, but that's it. It depends. But we're in our summer themed television special, so Heatwave opens up this week with what I was surprised to kind of see this match open the show: Ilya Dragunov versus Trick Williams, and I was kind of surprised. I was like, okay, I would have maybe thought of maybe putting this towards the middle of the show, but this opened it up. I was like, whoa, okay, like, all right. And we both have very interesting takes. Uh oh, but before we go into the play-by-play, I honestly didn't hate this match. While I was questioning why it was up first of the night, for me, I knew this was going to be kind of more one-sided as it was. Not to say that Trick was not going to get any offense in, but there was no way Ilya was losing this one. He's being built to be like contender. He just had an NXT championship match at Great American Bash, which, by the way, everyone should go watch that. That match is in contention for my match of the year so far. So it's really good. But I was surprised. I will say this is Trick's best match to date. And as I was telling my co-host, Oso Loco, earlier today, Trick is literally the embodiment of what NXT is supposed to. This is somebody who has no pro wrestling experience and learning how to do the trade and going through the system and training and all the workout and everything. Like, by far his best singles match to date, though it kind of was slow to begin with a tiny bit, and then it kind of picked up towards the end. But I still thought this was a lot of fun. So, but yeah, so those are my initial thoughts. But like I said, Ilya wins. Trick still had a good showing. What did you think?
Well, yeah. Okay, before I get into that match, I want to go back to our pool party earlier. And can I just ask why everybody there sounded like they were rejects from Jersey Shore? Like
So,
every single one of them. Not like a couple of them, but every one of them.
so I'm not sure if this was a strategic choice to kind of go with, since the D'Angelo family is very Italian and also
Right.
dress like they belong in the Jersey Shore. So I would not be surprised if everyone sounded like a Jersey Shore reject to kind of perpetuate what was going on.
Well, okay, and that's fair. I was just like, is everybody gonna talk like this through the whole thing? I was just like, because this feels very like at times, and this is coming from me as a theater professor, at times it felt kind of stereotyped. And I know that there's a lot of stereotypes in wrestling, and I get that. But this felt like, and I mean, now Tony D'Angelo, I mean, he looks Italian. I mean, he does. But there are some white folks in that pool talking like they're from the Jersey Shore. And I was just like, are you Italian? Because I don't really know. But yeah, I was just like, wow, that's cool. I didn't know the backstory for that. So and that's just me. I'm gonna, because I'm going into a lot of this without a lot of context, everybody. So those are people who are listening. So when I make my comments on things, this is coming from someone who doesn't know the backstories of these folks. Um, I respect the hell out of it, but I'm literally like, I don't know anything about the, D'Angelo family. so so I was just curious. That was what I wanted to kind of find out about that before I went into this match. Oh, and I will have to say the other thing that never in my life have I ever wanted to be Canning when he was in the pool and all those big burly men were jumping in on him. I was like, well done, sir. Well done.
This is your warning now that we're a couple minutes in. Remember, as Will stated last week, he's going to bring the G perspective to a lot of things, and I'm thoroughly entertained. This is going to be so good.
Yes. All right. So now to Dragonoff and Trick. So yeah, I also agree. This match felt weird to start it off because I thought the Dragonoff's entrance was rather anticlimactic. It was very kind of like, here I am. And I'm like, okay, this is like your opening act. You should start off with something big. And I mean, they could have done this fight, but I felt like a lot of the theatrics weren't there. And that it was sort of like, oh no, we need somebody. Hey guys, go. Is what it kind of felt like. And I thought it was kind of weak. Not the fight itself, but like it shouldn't have been there. It should have been in the middle somewhere. Um, they should have probably started off with something a little flashier, one might say. Um, and I thought it was, and I now that I have context on Trick, knowing that he's supposed to be like what NXT is, that idea of untrained, just starting out. Now I get a lot of my notes don't make any sense anymore because now I understand. Because originally I was like, this seems very poorly choreographed. And at times it felt like Trick was moving in slow motion. I mean, literally looked like he was like moving in slow motion. And with Dragonoff, like, zip zapping and all over. And I was just like, this feels weird. And now I see why. Nor now I understand why, because Trick is supposed to be the untrained amateur going up against someone who is far more experienced. So then I was like, okay. And I agree with my co-host that I think it started off really, really weak and slow. And then about midway-ish, it started picking up. And I really started getting more into it.
Right.
Because at first I was sort of like, oh, really? This is what you started with? Didn't catch my attention really. I was like, well, I'll watch it because I need to talk about it. And the last note I have on my thing about this is I find it hard to believe that white boy won. I mean, compared to the two, and I'm not saying that little people can't win or smaller or shorter or whatever, but it was just like, it felt to me, and again, I understand that Trick is supposed to be the underdog, the new kid basically. And for him to win a fight like that right out the gate is obviously not going to happen. And I knew that, kind of about midway, I was like, oh, okay, Dragonoff's supposed to win this round. Got it. But I felt that, I don't know, it's the visual of it didn't sit well with me. Like, I was like, there's no way that this big, tall black man did not just wipe the mat with that guy. I mean, truly, I was just like, the size. I mean, it didn't make any sense that even as an untrained wrestler, I mean, he should have been able to pick that man up and throw him into the stands. I was like, so I was kind of like, okay, I understand that he can't win this round or this match. I get that, but maybe they should have beefed him up against somebody else. Liked Dragunov. He was fun to watch. Um, little Russian guy, and then later on we see him again, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't dislike the guy. I think he's kind of fun. He's fun to watch. His moves are pretty cool. But yeah, this whole first match it felt weird to me. Like, I don't understand why they started with that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Honestly, like I knew that this match was more so to kind of like showcase Trick's growth, even in loss, like he's still doing good. I think the moment it started to pick up for me, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Was that vicious sounding? Oh my! I heard it through my speakers. So I was like, what are we doing? That knee strike from Trick to Ilya. That, oh my gosh, the sound ricocheted. I was like,
oh my God. I literally was like,
I was just like, oh no. And it's little spots like that where like the sound is off the charts. I'm like, I don't care if they amplified it. I was just like, that hurt me. I'm like, because then
oh yeah, it did.
from there I was like, oh no, here we go. All right, big knee to the face. And then from there it picked up. But yeah, Dragon.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. And I also think too, like, I enjoyed it still, but I know Ilya can't go all out against Trick because Ilya's style of wrestling is very hard hitting and very, I say violent, but I put it in air quotes. Like he's not actually out to try to kill somebody, but
it's aggressive.
His wrestling style is very aggressive. And it's also that Russian and, you know, English style of wrestling too, because they're more gritty and like heavy handed when it comes to the strikes and everything. Like they're very anything and everything to put pressure and to hurt the other opponent is their style. And I felt like Ilya had to kind of dial it back a little bit because you don't want to hurt the new kid on the block. And I still think Ilya did a good job of helping Trick kind of go through the paces, so to speak, in this match. And Trick did still look pretty decent at the end of this. I was just the biggest critique I had, and I mentioned it at the beginning, was this was kind of a weird thing to start Heatwave with based on all the matches we've got. And I'm not saying that, I'm trying to think, going through the card of what we got tonight, honestly, I mean, I would have been okay because we got segments of them later. I would have actually put Ivy and Ava first to begin because then we got those preceding like promos in the back in the video packages of everything that kind of set everything up for what's going down next week too. I'm like, that would have been a fun way to start. You start with that, and then we got 2 segments afterwards that follow through the whole entire show of Heatwave because it felt weird too, because like you mentioned, we see Ilya, backstage later in the show, and he's talking with Wes, but it just felt so off. I'm like, why are you still sweating? That was like 35 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, what is this?
It's like, why is he still wet? I was like,
yep.
But I will say with this match, I think Trick lost very well. I think his loss was really good. I mean, it was a good loss if you can be a good loss, but I think he, not having really seen anything prior, I think that he lost very well. I don't think it was like a sucker lose or he threw a match or anything. I think he legitimately, I mean, like you were saying, towards the end of the match, it got really intense. And I think that's when, of course, when Dragunov was like pounding the crap out of him, But I feel that even though he lost the match, he can hold his head up high because that was a damn good loss. I mean, he held his own.
Right.
I know. That's 2 thumbs up for me, buddy.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, I think that this match accomplished two things, which I'm okay with because, this is the TV special. And while we say wins and losses matter in NXT, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's not like actual sports where if you win enough, you deserve this championship match. It gets fuddled and muddied. But number one, this still keeps Ilya winning. So obviously, we're still building him back up to re-enter the NXT Championship picture. And then number two, even with Trick's lost, he can establish himself as the solo star as he's doing because he's parting since he parted ways with Carmelo like 2 weeks ago. Which, by the way, is still my favorite split because they went on amicable terms. It's not a hey, we're no longer friends, we can't team again. It's like, I'll see you later, and like down the road we go and get this, we got this. So this was great. So after this match, we cut backstage where we see my good old little strong boy Tyler Bate doing some Tai Chi backstage when Nathan Frazier, the NXT Heritage Cup champion, rolls up. And this is where we get like this back and forth between these two. It's like a weird like comedy sketch duo, and I'm here for it. Yeah. Like Tyler tells Nathan, this is like, I embrace the pain, and last week was brutal when he got jumped by Dabba-Kato, but he's going to be out there to support Nathan in the Heritage Cup champion. And then Nathan tells him, I need someone to have my back, especially if I'm going up against Noam Dar and his crew of the faction of Metaphor. So it's just like, all right. So Tyler agrees that he'll be out there. And then Nathan promises, yeah, man, I got you. You're going to get a shot. When I beat Noam Dar tonight, you're next to get this title shot, which complicates things, spoiler alert, when we get to it. So then before we cut to commercial, we see Miss Ivy Nile making her entrance, and then we go to the commercial break. I love Ivy Nile. I want NXT to do something more with her. I think she deserves the world. Her look is great. But it seems that we're slowly getting more direction because after what happened with this match and then what happened throughout the show, it seems like Ivy's going to be kind of busy for a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, And again, this is where it gets weird because like we have Ivy's entrance, we go to commercial, and then we get back from commercial, and then we have a like backstage segment like in the middle of these entrances, which was weird. So we have Mommy, Rhea Ripley, and Dominic Mysterio are in the locker room, and they're talking about how they're gonna win in their match tonight.
I don't know if you can see it, but look at this. Oh God, will it show it? There, right there.
You put Rhea and Dominic just with a big old circle X through it.
Yes, and it says Rhea and Dominic. Gross.
Good. That means that it's like they're doing your job. So they're having this conversation, and then future presidential candidate from last week, Mustafa Ali, rolls in, and he's wishing them luck, and he specifically tells Dominic to break a leg. No, actually, break a leg so NXT can have a worthy North American champion. I was like, I like this sassy Ali. If this is where we're going with this, I'm okay with it. And then, of course, Dominic, being the consummate heel that he is, he says, you know what? I don't care about NXT. I just care about making Mommy happy. I'm like, oh, God.
Again.
Now, here's the thing. Like, we're supposed to hate them because they're the bad guys, so to speak. And I understand like Rhea and Dominic being paired together has been this major storyline since WrestleMania and a little before that too. I still stand by the fact that Rhea Ripley and her thighs can do whatever they want to me. I'm just saying, like, I will show you a picture later that started all this with Rhea Ripley crushing Dominic with her thighs. It was ridiculous. And of course, outside of, things that I want Rhea's thighs to do to me, I've been following her career since she was in NXT, and I miss those days because she actually wrestled a lot. And I'm glad we got her to wrestle here because we'll talk about their match. I was really surprised of how much I enjoyed it. But, Rhea, as soon as Dominic says he doesn't care about NXT, but cares about making Rhea happy, Rhea tells Ali he has 10 seconds to get out. Otherwise, she's going to beat him down. And she's one of the few women who's like, I believe you. You will hurt me. But then I had to pause and crack up because as soon as she says that, Ali makes a snide remark before leaving that both Dominic and Rhea are probably used to only having 10 seconds before exiting out of the segment.
Yeah.
And I had a pause. I was like, he just went there on, and I was just like, I was like, sign me up. Ali versus Dominic for North American Championship. Like, I am okay with this. Like, if this is what we're going to get every single week with Ali being just a total smart ass and just cracking whips at the expense of Rhea and Dominic, I'm here for it.
Oh, he was so like passive aggressive. He came in there all like, "Hey, good job. Have a great, congrats, blah blah blah." And then he was all like, "Break a leg," and they're like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "No, really, break a leg."
It's like some mean girl type stuff. I'm here for it. It was so petty. I'm here for the pettiness. Ali is so good. I'm here for the pettiness.
Oh yeah, and good with a smile on his face the whole time. It was great. It was. And I know last week when we were talking about these promos, and I want to tell you this: there was not as much talking in these. There was a lot more like aggression in them, and less like let me monologue for you and tell you how amazingly awesome I am. And in these, it was like they were like little scenes. They were actually really good. I enjoyed all of them. And I was like, oh yay, no one's talking for 17 hours. It's great. Until later on, we'll get to that one because that one was like, oh my god, my literal wet dream came true. And I'm excited to talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, let's go back to
I think I know which one you're talking about according to the stream of messages. You're like, who is this person? We'll get into it. But so, again, that's the only big critique I had. I was just like, okay, we get an entrance. Wait, why are we backstage? Hold up. Why are we having a whole segment? And then we cut back to the match. I'm like, ugh. The main roster does this too. And me and John, the professor, talked about this on SmackDown too. Like, it's a pet peeve, but it is what it is. So then, so we get back to the ring. Ivy's in the ring. And then Ava makes her entrance. As I stated last week, Ava Raid is The Rock's daughter, and I'm going to defend her a tiny bit because I saw some haters online after this match, and I was like, okay, we're going to have to sit down and have a chat, so we'll talk about it in a little bit. This match was actually a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. I was like, okay, maybe I could see 6 to 7 minutes, because Ava is also... Even though she's Rock's daughter, she's still training and she's still learning. Ivy's also training and learning too, but Ivy has a little more experience. But I actually thought this was a good match in terms of like setting up what happens later. Because at first I was kind of like, I kind of wanted more for this match. But now in hindsight with what we got with the 2 segments back, so I was like, all together, it's like, okay, this is actually a pretty decent through line for this episode. Yeah. So it was nice to see Ava kind of get most of the offense, and like Ivy was just like being thrown around like a ragdoll, and getting Schism being in Ava's corner as well. So the numbers game was kind of there. And then Ivy just busts out of nowhere. She's like, as Ava goes to kind of do a body avalanche and a forearm to kind of do a rib breaker, Ivy puts her in a little back and forth and then catches her and like makes her tap in like less than 3 minutes. I was like, oh, all right. I was like, Ivy is not here to play games and I'm here for it.
It was a sleeper, right? Put her in a sleeper.
Yeah, she like put her in a sleeper chokehold. I was just like,
ooh. It was like tap, tap, tap. I was like, oh, shit, this is going to cause some issues. And that's when I was like, this was a setup match. Because then we get the 2 little vignettes later, and I was like, I see what you guys did there.
Yeah.
Well done, guys.
because initially I was gonna say and then I was like, but I wanted a little more because I like Ivy and Ava, but it is what it is. But then putting the whole of everything throughout the night together, it's like, okay, this was smart. And it started right after the match because Ivy, after she wins, she puts Ava back in the chokehold, and then she goes ham and starts beating up the mass schism goons one by one as they all try to come in and save Ava. And I was like, yes, Ivy, you like throw these people out of the ring. And this is what I've been waiting for Ivy for so long. I want her to be this consummate badass where she takes no shit, whether it's man or woman or anybody in between. And she is just going to kick ass and take names because, man, I love Ivy. I think she's great in the ring. And I'm actually kind of glad now we're getting more and more of her as we're building, we're still in the process of building the women's division back up after main roster probably took a lot of the big names that have been in NXT for the last couple of years and still haven't used them too much on main roster, but that's a different conversation. So as Ivy is standing tall and she's like taking names and kicking ass, this is where we get this weird backstage segment between Ilya. I'm like, bro, this was like 25 minutes ago. Why are we still out of breath and sweating? Because then he comes and he confronts Wes about like there's nothing standing between him and the NXT championship now, which is kind of true, to be honest. But I love Wes's response is like, bro, I was like, you need to take it all the way down. Like, it's like, you're right. It's like there's nothing standing between you and the NXT champion. So when I win that championship, me and you are gonna run it back at No Mercy, and we're gonna have finished this business we got going on. And I was just like, I was like, all right. I was like, okay. I'll save when we get to the main event, I'm gonna save my predictions because I'm like, I think we're getting a triple threat at No Mercy, which I will not be upset with, but we'll talk about that later. So then this is where I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm interested to get Will's thoughts of how he feels about experiencing his first Heritage Cup championship match. Because I warned you last week that it is so different. And then it happened.
Yeah. So before I get to that, let me go back to the ladies real quick because I love women's wrestling. I love it because it feels more realistic. It feels more brutal. Feels raw, more raw. And I loved both of these women. Ivy was great. She looks like a muscly bound Kristen Chenoweth, which I thought was fantastic. And for those of you who don't know who Kristen Chenoweth is, you should look her up. But truly, she does. She looks like Kristen Chenoweth. And I was like, but like bulked out. And I was like, that's funny. And then I love Ava. Ava's great. Oh my gosh. She's so like, just the energy she puts off is so cool. And I loved her. And of course, I was thinking, oh, girl, those mesh hose, that's painful. You should go with something a little less crisscrossy that's cutting into you, and then it rips, and then it goes up your butt crack. But she was fantastic. I was like, wow. Yeah, you're right. She was throwing Ivy all over the place. And then by a stroke of quote unquote luck, Ivy got her in that sleeper. And I love Ivy in that ending because she's like, oh, I won, but here I'm gonna go back at her again, and then here comes the schism boys and girls, and then she just starts kicking their asses. And I was like, this one moment in this match is what wrestling is supposed to be. It is supposed to be, we just had a match, and then your cronies are going to come in and try to take me down, and I'm going to beat their ass. And that's what Ivy did. And then I loved Ava's exit as the two guys are carrying her off. She's looking at her smiling. I was like, oh. And then it's like, oh, it's so short. But then that's when I was like, oh, something's coming. Something big is coming. Because that match was way too short to be nothing. I was like, something's coming. And I was, oh my God, yes. That was like They should have opened with that. You're right. They should have opened.
I think because of the follow through for the whole entire rest of Heatwave, I think starting that, and then because we got that first one in the middle, and then towards the end of the show where we set up before the bumpers, I was like, perfect storytelling, 3-act structure in less than 2 hours.
I mean, that match, albeit was short, it got my blood pumping. And it should, you're right. This event should have opened with that match, because I think the energy in the whole thing would have been so much higher. And again, don't get me wrong, with the first match, but it was very anticlimactic. And then these ladies come out, and man, they put up show. I was like in it. I was in it from the beginning, and I was just like, oh my god. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was trying to write notes and watch this thing, and I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so yeah, that was, oh, they should have started with that. Yeah.
It was great. So
God, was so good. All right, so to the Heritage Cup.
yes. So for those of you that are not aware or, never watched NXT UK, may it rest in peace. I'm still sad they canceled it. I'm going to send you pictures. There was a lot of great talent. Also a lot of people to ogle, but that's a different conversation. But for those of you that aren't aware of what a Heritage Cup is, so the Heritage Cup is kind of based off of like the very traditional rules set in the British wrestling scene, where instead of having like long drawn out like matches until somebody wins for a long period of time, the rules for the Heritage Cup follow the British rules, in which there are a total of sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 5, but in NXT's case, they use the 6-round system, where in order to win the Heritage Cup, you need to win 2 pinfalls, and it can happen within those 6 rounds. Each round is about 2 minutes each, and then there's like a 30-second break. And then I'm going to steal this from our Ring of Honor review, because it kind of follows the same rule as the Pure Championship and Ring of Honors, where it's very strict, very traditional rules, very, very short. But Ring of Honor has all the extra rules. But this one, the Heritage Cup, tends to be one of my favorite gimmick championships, because of the fact that a lot of the Heritage Cup winners are actually British wrestlers, or from the British or European scene. So it makes sense they do this all the time. But it's always interesting to see this happen on North American television in front of an audience, like my co-host case, where have never watched NXT UK, never heard of this type of match before. And I was like, I'm so excited, because I personally like the Heritage Cup, especially if you get the right individuals to fight. And Nathan and Noam are always my favorite. They put on really good classics in NXT UK. Both of them are phenomenal talents. But yeah, I like this. I will say I kind of picked wrong on this one. I thought Nathan was gonna, retain, because he's the real Heritage Cup champion. But man, I was like, they gave it back to Noam. I was like, oh, oh, okay. I'm not mad, but where are we going? And then I got my answer later. I was like, oh, I see what you're doing, NXT. I see you. Okay. This was a lot of fun, as it should be. And I think it's perfect, especially because you break it up. Like, if you have 2 minutes of high octane action, it's like, it runs the risk of like stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. But this was great. I liked it.
So yeah, I did too. I actually liked this format. I didn't think I was going to. When they were talking the rules, I was like, okay, I'll hold my judgment. But I really like it. It's 3 minutes, right? It's the 3-minute. It's each one's 3 minutes.
Actually, yeah, I think each round is about, it's 3 minutes, and then obviously the round ends when they get a pin or whatever.
Right. It's like, yeah. But I really liked it. I liked and I don't think it felt choppy at all. I think it flowed pretty well. And of course, Noam and Nathan both, I thought watching, looking at the whole as a whole, I thought they were very evenly matched. I didn't feel like one was stronger than the other. I thought they were, and I guess that's why they went basically all 6 rounds. because they were so evenly matched. I thought that they fought well together. They were fun to watch. Uh, Dar is cute. Uh, I thought that the overall was very well choreographed. It was a great fight. It was great. There was so much, and this is another one, and that I was kind of like really watching and like really oh gosh, and it had so many good moves, so many great defense, offensive moves. They were in and out of the ring. There at one point, I think it was a uh, oh, what did Nathan do? Oh, Nathan did a really great move, and I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. And now my brain's gonna be like, oh no, it is. That's when he does that first jump off the ropes onto him. I was like, dang. I was like, and I was with you because Fraser was annihilating him. I was just like, oh wow, this is. And then I was thinking, ha, the shit talker is getting his ass kicked. And yeah, Fraser was just wiping the mat with him, and I was like, okay, so we know who's gonna win this mat. It's like, so I was right there. I was right there with you on that one. And then I thought, I loved that there was a great little moment that I laughed at, and it's the moment where they're both on the side of the turnbuckles and they hit each other and they fall off the thing onto the ground. I actually laughed because I thought, well, that was a bit of funny humor in that, even though it was not supposed to be, I think, but it really was. It was so funny. They were like, they popped each other and they literally both fell backwards onto the ground. And I was like, that is fantastic. And there was lots of close calls, like pinnings and things like that. And you're just like, oh, there was a couple there, though, I swear should have been counted. There was a couple because and it was when I think it was around 2 or 3. It could have been 2 or 3. I can't remember. But Fraser had Dar down, and the ref was counting, and he could have easily hit a 3, and his shoulder was still on that mat. And then suddenly he's like 1, 2, and then he was going down, and I was like, it's still there. And he went, oh no, and then he kicked up. I was like, wait a minute. That should have counted, but no, it was great. I loved it all the way up to the end, even to the end. It did not disappoint, I think, at all. It was one of my favorite matches of the night.
Oh yeah,
it really was.
I honestly think the Heritage Cup is because it was brought over from NXT UK, and at first I was just like, I love it. I know what to expect going into these types of matches, but I don't know if American audience would be behind it because it's so. I don't even want to say it's like not even UK. It's like a very European type of thing to do. And listen, like I don't need to go into it, but America is weird sometimes. And I was just like, I don't know how a Western audience in the Americas would come to get behind this, but man, I'm so happy that the few matches we've gotten of the Heritage Cup, we've gotten the audiences have been getting behind it, and it's great. That so to break it down, like round 1, evenly matched, clock runs out. Round 2, things get weird because we go to commercial break, and then we only get told this. We didn't really get to see it happen, but Tyler Bate got beat up by Dabba-Kato round 2 and had to be held to the back. I'm like, stupid commercials.
Oh, I saw it.
Okay.
Oh my god, it came out of nowhere. It was like we were watching, and then all of a sudden the camera zips over there. And there's Kato, like just like annihilating him.
How dare he do that to my little strong boy?
Yeah, no, they came in and they're like, oh no, he's so seriously injured. They had to like carry him out of the arena. And then I was just like, oh shit, what just happened? Because Kato came literally out of nowhere. I didn't see him come in. I just saw him picking him up and then slamming him onto the mat. And then he just rolled off, and then it was like down there.
Tyler Bate, man.
Rushed, yeah, and just all rushed down to like, oh, are you okay? And he's all like,
so he had to be held to the back, and that leaves Nathan like literally with literally nobody in his corner. So now it's the numbers game between Nathan, his opponent Noam, and then the other 3 members of Metaphor, which is intense. But because of that, Noam picks up the first pinfall in round 2. Round 3 is where it gets spicy because at the end of the round, Noam does a cheap shot on Nathan as it ends, and I was just like, "Oh, it's about to go down," which leads into round 4. So like Nathan ain't playing around. He picks up the win in round 4, and we're tied 1-1. So whoever gets the next pinfalls wins. Round 5, that 450 splash off the top rope with nobody home. Like it was oof. No, so the 450 he hits. It's round 6 where he goes for the Phoenix splash, but nobody's home, and that in the final round, which allows Noam Dar to pick up the win, going 2-1, and he is the Heritage Cup champion.
What does he say in the thing? They're like, what's it like to be the new Heritage Cup? He's like, no. Was it returning or whatever he said?
This storyline has been silly because he was the Heritage Cup champion. Because he was injured, his Metaphor teammate, Aura Mensa, defended it against Nathan, lost to Nathan, so Nathan became it. Like, for weeks, he just was this depressed shell of a man, which was ridiculous. And then the girls in Metaphor, like, made a fake cup to make him happy. And they were just, like, gaslighting him, be like, no. Like, you are the real champion, and then it just became a silly storyline. It was so great. But now Noam is the actual NXT Heritage Cup champion. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm surprised you got it back so quickly, but hey, you know what? Honestly, like with all the people involved, like I'm okay with it. And then I got more excited when we got that announcement towards the end, which we'll get into in a little bit. All right, let's talk about continuing to talk about things we like. So this was the first Ava Rain segment that we got. This is the promo.
Yes.
So she cuts this promo, and it's like backstage, and she cuts it about how she's still safely underneath the Schism tree, despite her losing and not getting the results she wanted. And if Ivy wants to prove her wrong, that she could come and find Ava. So it's like, oh, okay, Ava's calling Ivy out, so we're not done, and I'm here for this. So short, it was simple, sweet, and then it plays into what we get towards the end of the show, which I'm really excited to talk about that. Then we get Miss Barbie of NXT, Tiffany Stratton, walking backstage as we go to commercial. And when we come back, Tiffany comes into the ring, and this is where we get this really long women's segment. Not really long, but we get this was probably the longest promo segment of the night. So Tiffany's in the ring, and then she's on the mic. And she starts off by, this was the summer of Tiffany and how being champion during the summer was great. And she talks about how she's going to go down as the best NXT women's champion of all time. And then she names drop past NXT women's champions who are now on the main rosters, like Bayley, Becky Lynch, Asuka, and of course, one Miss Charlotte Flair. So this, I was just like, okay, Tiffany being like this bratty girl and just like, I'm so better than you attitude. I'm like, I'm here for it. I'm a big fan of Tiffany. Tiffany is also one of those. She has the gymnastics background, but she has no wrestling experience. And this is literally, they built her up. Her match against Lyra at Battleground for the NXT Women's Champion, because it was a tournament because it got vacated. That match was so good. I was just like, Tiffany is a star. And of course, you know, her character is, love her or hate her, this is her character, and I'm here for it. And then
she's my Barbie Quinn. My Barbie Quinn.
Yes, that is what you called her. Quinn. That is who you what you called Tiffany when you were messaging me and be like, I kind of love Barbie Quinn.
I love Barbie Quinn. You know, at first when I first saw her last week, I was like, okay, typical like female wrestler, you know, kind of more to look at than there's less substance. And I'm not saying that there's more substance now that I saw this one, but I love her so much. And yeah, I call her my Barbie Quinn now. But I love her. She's like the summer of Tiff. And I was like, you are just about every gay man's dream. They would literally like want to hang out with you, and I want to hang out with her. I think it would be fun. But yeah, this, and I have to say before you get into the rest of it, this is one of my favorite moments of this whole thing that's
we'll
coming up in
we'll get to
NXT.
the pinnacle, and oh man, I can't wait to talk about it. So then as Tiffany is talking about this, then who should enter the chat but somebody else who has like Will has gotten interested. Miss Gigi Dolan comes out, and then she starts cutting a promo. And Will's like, hold up, who is this redhead coming down to the ring? I'm like, oh, that must be Gigi. And you're like, Gigi, huh? And I was like, I kind of like her. I was like, this didn't do justice, but let me show you this video real quick of her full entrance. And then Will's just like, oh, okay, she's one of my favorites now.
Oh yeah, I love her. I love Gigi. Oh my god.
Her wrestling gear is always so much fun. Like she's coming out in like the leather biker jacket, and then like the BDSM like leather hat, and then she has the flower, and it's just like sexy, but not like in an over sexualized way, if that makes any sense. You're just like, oh, you're gonna kick my ass, but I kind of want you to kick my ass, but
Yeah. Yes, please hit me
harder.
Yeah. She was great. I loved her. Yeah, she came in there and I was like, hey, and this is funny, and not to give it away or anything, but this was like a clown car scene, and I just laughed every single. As each moment went by, it just made me go, what? But when Gigi came out, I was texting, and I was just like, who is this? Who what? And then she came, and then you sent me, and I was like, oh my god, I love her. I love her so much. And I love, one of the things I loved about Gigi versus Barbie Quinn Tiffany is that they're so opposite. And that was what's so great about it. It was such a juxtaposition because you've got Tiff, who is all Barbie in essence, and then you've got like Gigi, who is like the what are those, the crap. Anyway, I was about to age myself, but I decided not to. But sort of the more gothy version, it's sort of that light versus dark, and I loved it. I was eating it up. And both of these women are gorgeous, by the way. So yeah, continue, sir.
It's all good. Okay. So Gigi is out here, she's cutting this promo. And she, first of all, she tells Tiffany to shut the hell up, which is, the go-to line for a lot of the women's division, and I'm okay with it. And she says she gets what Tiffany is talking about, but what Gigi is dying to see is, to see Tiffany fall. I was just like, yeah, that's fair for Gigi. So Gigi says, look no further for her next challenger right there. And Tiffany was just like, if this is you shooting your shot, consider you getting shot down because you don't deserve this opportunity. And she's just belittling it. And then at this point, Gigi doesn't deserve to call herself, like, basically tells Tiffany she doesn't deserve to be called a champion because she's tapped out at the last time she defended the title, which is kind of true, but the ref didn't see. And while these two are arguing, then the next person to enter the chat is Miss CEO herself, Kiana James, with her and her big ass purse.
Oh my god.
So
that was so funny.
It is. And what I appreciate is that Gigi and Kiana have been feuding for a couple of weeks now. So we still haven't resolved this. And I was like, okay, like I'm here for these two, like being in the mix with Tiffany because they have, history. They've been feuding for a little bit. And okay, so a little bit of context. So Kiana James, right? I know a lot of people don't like her character, and again, she's also like no previous pro wrestling experience, and so she's like built from the ground up. And honestly, I didn't really give her much thought most of 2020 when she started appearing on NXT television. But then the final pay-per-view last year for NXT Deadline, they had like this weird Iron Survivor multi-women elimination match where they wrestled for like 30 minutes, and it was like an Iron Woman match. So whoever got the most pins in 30 minutes would be the next in line for the NXT Women's Championship. And they put a bunch of strong women in there, and then all of a sudden Kiana won her spot. I was just like, okay, she's still green, so like, why is she in the ring with all like, I don't want to say like the better women's wrestlers? That Iron Woman match made me a fan of hers because I actually was upset she didn't get any pinfalls, but she was knocking bitches out left and right. Like she was suplexing girls all over the place. Like she was like the literal dark horse, and she was taking out all the women. And I was just like, okay, you made me a fan. And then to this year, she's had a pretty good year. She was NXT Women's Champion for a little bit. Like she had a whole feud that went into Stand and Deliver, which is like the biggest pay-per-view for NXT. And I got to see that live, by the way. So that was a great time. But literally, Kiana says that there's no chance that Gigi will get a title shot, but Kiana deserves it. And then, you know, before we get the third member entering the chat, your thoughts on Kiana and her short little segment.
I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but I liked her too. I have to say that so far, I have really liked all of the women wrestlers. Whether they're good guy, bad guy, I've really liked all of them. It's like, I mean, even Rhea, I like her too. The thing with Dom is gross, but I like her. And each of them have such a strong personality, a strong presence. Even the meeker ones, quote unquote, they have such stage presence. So when they're in the ring, my eyes are on them. I mean, when Kiana came in and was talking her shit, I was on her. I was like, okay, I'm with you. Yeah, you're making sense to me. It's like, yeah, absolutely. You tell her what you need to tell her. I was like, yeah, I was on board, and then it was like, oh, there's these three, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna. And I thought, oh gosh, is something about to happen here? I was like, are we gonna get like a cage match with these women? Because I would be there to watch this. It's like, but I was just like, listening to, and I love that when each of them came in, it wasn't like they were just talking to Tiff. They were like talking. They were like, "Oh, you need to shut up. Oh, but hey, you over here, you need to do this, and I'm this." And then they were like talk at all of each other, not just one on like Kiana was specifically on one, or Gigi was specifically on one. They were out on each other, and it was so great. And one of my favorite things is watching Tiffany's face through this whole segment.
She literally like, like, really? Did you say that? Oh my gosh.
How could you say that about me? Don't you know who I am? And I was like, I love you. She was in character from beginning to end, and I was on this. So yeah, I love Kiana. She was great.
Man. And then for me personally, it gets better because the third person to enter the chat is Blair Davenport. First of all, I want to talk about this outfit real quick. So she's wearing a mesh shirt over a camisole with skeletal hands on the tatas like it's 2022, and I was here for it.
I agree. I loved actually, and I liked all of their looks, and I love that they were all distinct and individual. And this is the theater person in me, as when we look at characters, I love that they were all individual characters. Like there was nothing, like you put them all shoulder to shoulder and they're all different. They're not cookie cutter. It's not like, oh, this, and you look just, if I turn the lights out and put a white light behind you and we looked at silhouettes, they would all be the same. It's not that at all, which is great. And I love that. But yeah, Blair coming in, I was just like, oh, you're cute. She was her outfit was cute. It was cute. I mean, it was like cute.
I was like, this is so British punk, and I'm here for it. Yeah. Which, I mean, it fits because she is from the UK, and that like British punk scene is what she normally rocks. Like a lot of her wrestling gear is inspired by that, even when she was wrestling in New Japan and in the Japanese women's wrestling promotion. It was good. But literally, and I was just like, her and her British accent, man. I'm like, I love Blair so much, but Blair starts off coming in hot as she talks about her own fluent influence on the women's division, because she is the veteran of all the women that were involved in this segment. Like, she has been wrestling for quite some time, so she has wrestled around the world, and now she's made her way to WWE and NXT, which I'm like, good on you, girl. Again, I was excited because she got to NXT UK. She's gonna kill she's gonna kill it, and then NXT UK shut down. I was so upset. But she talks about her own accomplishments, which I was like, yes, I don't like when like heels talk about, oh, I've got this championship, that championship in companies. But I was like, oh no, girl, I believe you. I've seen you kick the many asses of women all up and down the world. So like, I love you, but I'm also terrified that you will choke me out. And you know what? You deserve to talk about how established you are, because you have done a lot of things to women. Like, like,
Right.
it's crazy. So she talks about her own like accomplishments and establishment. And was the blueprint for a lot of you girls in the locker room, and I should be next. And then Gigi says that you actually have to go through the division to get to the top. And then I laughed at this. Gigi reminds Blair that how she got her ass kicked in a convenience store from Roxanne before the Great American Bash. Like, she literally got ran through a gas station store. She got canned goods thrown at her.
Oh shit.
It was so sidebar. So Blair and Roxanne, who we'll get into in a little bit, like those two had a match at Great American Bash, and then like the go home show or the last NXT show before the pay-per-view, these two women had like their own version of the iconic, I don't know if you remember, the Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T fight in the grocery store.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
the women, like, they had a scaled down version, but it made a lot of sense because, like I mentioned to Will, I'm like, Roxanne Perez, the student who was trained by Booker T, like Booker T actually trained her, and like Roxanne's such a phenomenal wrestler. And then the Blair and Roxanne killed each other with weapons at Great American Bashes. Great. But Gigi reminds her about this. And then as immediately as she's done dissing Blair, Gigi goes back to Kiana and says that, Kiana should get canned goods thrown at her, and she would love to see her get destroyed in a grocery store. And then as everyone starts to talk over each other, the final person involved in this promo, Miss Roxanne Perez, only a mere 20 years old, and she is like, her and Blair, I think, are the best women's wrestlers in the NXT women's locker room right now, because they've wrestled all over the world. Roxanne is so good, and she's only 20. She's been doing this since she was 16. It's crazy out here. But Roxanne probably has the best moment. So she comes in, she reminds Blair that she beat her down, and then she literally has something to tell Tiffany. And Will, I will let you describe what happens next.
This is what a promo should be. This is where you are talking and then someone is knocking your shit out. Man, it was like it, because I was texting with Mikey, and it was like, oh hey, this that, and, and I was like, and then he's like, oh, just wait. And I was like, oh, okay, what? And then I immediately looked up from my phone to the screen, and bam, she just, oh my god. Thank God I had my office door closed, because I was yelling. I was like, yeah. It's like, yes, that's how you do it. That's it right there. You talk your shit, and then someone pops you in the face with a chair, even though she didn't hit her with a chair. But still, it was like, oh my god, yes. My literally my wet dreams came true. I finally saw a promo where someone got their face hit. I was like, yes.
Will saw this,
great.
And he needed a cigarette afterwards.
I did. I was like, whoo, I'm done. I'm spent. I was like, oh my goodness. That. Oh, I know it seems silly, but I'm literally like, that's the type of promo I love. I love a part where someone's talking shit, and then someone said, here's the check, pay up. and smacks him with something. And I was just like, oh my God, it was fantastic. And then it just collapsed into a big brawl.
Everyone just started fighting each other. And I love that as the four would-be contenders are fighting each other, like Tiffany like slips out the back. She's like, bye, toodles, I'm out. Like,
Oh my God.
see you never.
I just
And this is not the last time we see Tiffany, because Tiffany says some interesting stuff that sets up what I'm really excited about next week, but we'll get to it. So as soon as we had probably like the best promo of the night, LOL. Like Roxanne is that wrestling girl. She's like, I have something to tell you. Bam, in the face. Like,
oh my God. I was just like, oh.
And see, Roxanne's the perfect person to do this because they've been trying to give her an edge for the last like couple of months or so. Because coming into NXT, she's like this very sweet, naive girl. Like, she loves everybody. And then she entered her feud with Blair where she's like, I'm gonna cut a bitch. And then she's out here, still has that. Because I was afraid, I was like, okay, she beat Blair. So are we still gonna get that edge? Is she gonna go back to like being like sweet and like sugary sweet Roxanne? And no, she walks in, talks her shit, hits Tiffany, and then all hell breaks loose and holds her own. I was like, yes, this is the Roxanne I'm excited to see.
Yeah, this was a prison scene. She would have shanked her so bad. I was just like, oh my gosh. It just, I mean, I got to tell you something, and she just flew into it. And I was like, damn. I was like, so yes, I also like Roxanne as well.
Right.
So I like all of these women.
Honestly,
for different reasons.
Honestly,
God.
This and the next segment, we're gonna, not the next segment, but the segment after this that we talk about might actually be my favorite spot of the evening. So after this women's promo leading into the all-out brawl, next we get a short little vignette. We see Damon Kemp and Charlie Dempsey, who needs a haircut still, training under Drew Gulak's eyes when when the poor kid comes rolling up and says he's done with his chores. And then Drew tells him, is like, we don't get tired here. And then Dempsey proceeds to choke the kid out. I was just like, yeah. I was like, what is happening? I was like, what is this? But I'm like here for it in a weird way.
I know. I was too. Because I was just like, what is going on? I was like, okay, it's a training. Okay. And of course, you're right. He needs a haircut. And yeah, then it turned into something else all of a sudden, and I was kind of there for it.
It was like a VOD, like a VOD style of like comedy all of a sudden, where this kid gets choked out. I had to pause because this was my WTF moment of the night, but like in a good way. I was just like, I was so caught off guard by how absurd, like the tone shift that happened in this segment. It's like it went from a training montage and kind of being kind of serious, but these three are not serious, but kind of serious wrestlers. And then it goes full on like
Three Stooges.
Yes, like literally physical comedy at its like right now. This kid is like done getting his chores. And Drew's like, we don't get tired here. And then Charlie proceeds to choke the kid out.
Choke him out. I was like, what's happening right now? I was just like, then I felt bad for the poor kid. I was like, oh my gosh, someone needs to call CPS or something. I don't know, but damn.
Yeah, that
was so funny.
I was laughing so hard. I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I can't help it because of how caught off. Good job, NXT. This was my WTF moment. I was so caught off guard.
This was mine as well.
And then we cut to see, Rhea and Dominic making their entrance, and then we go to commercial. We come back for commercial, and the entrance is still happening, but then we get another in promo segment. But I wasn't as mad at this one because why? Because this is probably one of my favorite spots outside of the women's brawl tonight. So Ava Raine, she cuts another promo against Ivy, how she's still pissed. And I love the continuity because she's not letting this go, which is weird. Which is in a good way, this like is kind of contradicting what the schism's all about. They're like, hey man, like roll water off a duck's back, as Jinx Monsoon says, but like we don't sweat the small stuff. But she's getting vindictive and she's getting upset. She's like, I'm not gonna let this go. And Ava's just like, you know what? Like, I'm still gonna cut this promo against Ivy. And then who should come up behind her but Ivy shows up and just like, I'm here. You want to fight? Let's go. And Ava tells like the Schism boys that are with her, be like, hey, go get her. But they're not listening. They get Ava instead, and they like kind of throw. I also got to give props to the camera person, like, because the goons throw Ava to the ground, but they also push the camera guy to the ground, and then they pick up the camera again, take off the masks, and who is it? But it is the Creed brothers, who supposedly have left NXT when they lost their leaves NXT match against the Schism. And so they literally call out the Schism, or specifically the Dyad, so the tag team in the Schism. They're like, hey, I was just like, we kidnapped Ava, and if you want her back, you're going to give us what we want. And we'll see you next week in a match in a steel cage. And then they proceed with Ivy to like take Ava and like take her off screen as we end this. I was just like,
it was
best 3-act structure in NXT in quite some time. And the Oscar goes to like,
absolutely. Wow. I was like, what a way to put a pin in that. I was like, because at first I was like, okay, here we go. All right, so what's the next one? I was like, all right. And then when Ivy came in, it's like, okay, we're gonna have this, okay, typical. And then she was like, get her boys, and they didn't move. And I was like, wait a minute. Then I was like, oh, those are the two guys from last week. And I was like, oh my God. And then they like took her instead. And I was like, this is the best. It's like, oh my God. They literally were like mind blown. And then it was great. It was like right out of a movie. They grab her and the camera falls to the ground, and you see the ground and you can hear the scuffling and and then they pick the camera up and then they're talking to the camera and then they throw it back down and leave. And it was so good. It was so well done. So yay on the camera person, whoever the cinematography for that scene was, because that was fantastic. I was just like, this is going to be good. I was like, I knew it was leading that first match. I was like, this is leading to something, because it was way too short for its own good. So I was like, there's something going on. And now we know. So I'm really hoping either, I'm kind of actually, the funny thing is, I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. We're going to end up in a steel cage match. But I would love for this, whatever this is, to play out a little bit. I mean, like, I want to see more of this, because this was exciting to me. This is probably my favorite moment outside of the girl fight, the promo fight. But this was probably my favorite, like, dun dun. It was so good. God, it was such a great little. Oh, it was so good.
Right.
So good.
And like, the last thing I'll say about it, the reason this whole entire like 3-part segment made me so happy is from, and I don't claim to be an expert, but from like a writer's perspective, like one of the things that, a lot of writers, whether it's for, novelization, for the screen, for the stage, like the basic building block of any writing is a 3-act structure. Like, okay, what is your beginning event? What is like your climax, or the events that lead to the big moment? And then what are all the concluding events, or what happens afterwards? Or like, what is the end result of the same thing? And for me, I was played a fool when the match was so short at the beginning, but when I put that match with what we got in the middle of the show and what we got here, I was just like, it made me so happy, because I'm like, this is a good, quick and easy 3-act structure that not only continues the feud between Diamond Mine, which includes Ivy and the Creeds, and the Schism, but it adds a new dimension to it, because before, the Schism was always the ones on the attack against the Diamond Mine, and now the Diamond Mine have successfully played mind games with the Schism, as the Schism did to them from previous episodes. It's like, no, now you're going to be on our terms, and if you want Ava back, like you say that you're about like 4 trees under the same root, you're going to come and get her. You're going to fight us in this steel cage match. I was like, yes, yes. I'm just like, honestly, I was just like, between this and the women's promo, like this was the top. Those two things like really made my night. I'm like, this is how promos, this is how vignettes should be done. Main roster, you really need to take some notes, because honestly, these new kids are kind of stealing your thunder a little bit. And I review the main roster shows, and I'm just like, y'all need to get it together, because this was beautiful. It doesn't need to be like a whole like month's worth of storytelling. Like a quick, we got a good story, an added chapter into the legacy of this feud in a matter of less than an hour. And then it was so good.
I think that the other thing I loved about this bit is the continuity of it. Like, it literally felt like it was a singular story happening A to B to C to D. You know, like, I think we were talking, I think, jokingly earlier about Ilya and Wes and how that was like so far apart, so the continuity didn't make any sense. You know, that because, you know, here he comes in, he's all still breathy and sweaty, and it's like that literally match happened like 30 minutes ago. But this 3-part, it literally I felt like it was taking up exactly where the previous one left off. I mean, there was no incontinuity to it. Incontinuity, is that right? Right. Whatever. You know what I mean. It was so good. Yeah, I agree. This and the women's promo is probably my pinnacle for this event. God, it was so good.
Right.
So good.
And then I got my answer. I was like, okay, Noam Dar's the new Heritage Cup champion. What's next in the chapter for this championship? And then my prayers got answered, because we cut back to Metaphor celebrating backstage when the Heritage Cup committee literally comes up and serves Noam Dar some kind of legal notices, like, you have been served. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. So Oro opens it up, and literally this little legal service says that there's going to be an 8-man tournament to crown a number 1 contender for, to face Noam Dar for the Heritage Cup championship. And that championship match is going to be at No Mercy. I'm just like, yes, Heritage Cup at No Mercy. Let's go. I'm excited. And so it's literally, and then we'll get to the name of this tournament, because we got told the name before the main event. And I'm just like, oh, please give it to me now. This is going to be great. But Noam Dar is not out of the woodworks yet, because now we're going to have a tournament to see who becomes number 1 contender. And I have a feeling as to possibility who a couple of those names could be, but, we'll get into that later. Then, outside of the main event, this match was a close second, because I was not expecting. I was so surprised of how good and how fun this match was. So we get the mixed tag match between Mommy, Rhea Ripley, and Dominic Mysterio, who are a part of the Judgment Day. So that's like their team name. Judgment Day taking on the team of Lyra Valkyria and Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee, my short king. What's up? This match was, oh my God, this match was what I wanted. Like, Rhea and Lyra just kicking ass all the time. Dominic's lucha libre style has gotten so much better. Dragon Lee's out here defying all laws of physics and gravity and just quick with it. And then a running spot for my girl, Raquel Rodriguez, beating up Rhea. And I was just like, ugh, this had everything I wanted. It had women's fighting each other and looking like they're going to kill each other, and that their strikes were harder than the men. I got my high-flying octane lucha libre style matching. We had an interruption in the match that made sense, and the right person took the pin, in my opinion, and the right team won. I will say Lyra Valkyria is a fucking badass, and I love her so much.
I have that note. I literally have that. Lyra is a feisty badass. God, this is such a good match. And going into it, I was just like, oh, Rhea and Dominic. And but man, and then you're right. Dragon Lee, he's much shorter than I thought he was. Because in promos, he looks really like tall and big. And he's a good size, but he's like short.
Compared to everybody else in the ring, I was just like,
yeah, I was like, oh,
I think he's only like a couple inches taller than Rey Mysterio because Rey Mysterio is really short.
It was great. I was like, wow, you're short little guy, but and I just Rhea scares me, and I love that. I love how intense she is. I just love her. I just her whole persona that she's got going on is so freaking good. And I just when she's talking shit, and I mean, it's just great. Um, I really wanted to give Dominic a haircut. That mullet was driving me crazy, but maybe that's just because I'm from Texas. I don't know. Um, yeah, Lyra, badass. Oh my god, she was probably my favorite person in the ring. And honestly, I think that probably the women were my favorite. Once again, when the women were fighting, it was like, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh. When the guys were fighting, it was like, all right, yeah, get him. Yeah, do that thing. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, bring the ladies back in. Oh gosh, let her go. Yeah. And it was, but again, I thought this match was pretty evenly matched. Like the teams. I didn't, and as Dominic and Dragon Lee were fighting, I was like, they felt very evenly matched. So it wasn't like one was dominating the other, so to speak. And I thought the women were very equally matched as well. Even though Rhea was really like pounding on Lyra there at the beginning, though she was pounding on her,
Grinding her into the mat and everything.
yeah, I was like, damn. And but this fight was, oh, the funny thing is there was a moment, and I don't know, it was at the beginning, and it was when he and Dragon were fighting. Oh god, what was it? Something happened. I don't remember what it was, but Dom had the most surprised look on his face. I think Dragon had gotten a really good hit on him, and he just had this sort of like, how did that happen look on his face. I was like, why does he look so surprised? You're in a wrestling match. Why are you looking so surprised?
Yeah, what
Um,
it was great. One of the things that I loved about this is because Dominic's whole thing of why him and Dragon Lee are fighting is not only because of the North American Championship, but like Dominic's current storyline right now, and I love it because it's so like sleazy and everything. He's like, I'm the best luchador in WWE. I'm like, your dad's right there, Dragon Lee's right here. We have a couple of other luchadors in here. I'm like, that's blasphemy. And I'm kind of here for this storyline. And it showed, and it plays into his surprise face. He's like, what? Oh my gosh, somebody can take me down. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. But
uh,
I was like, I was okay with that. It was great. I loved it.
it absolutely was.
And then of course, my girl Raquel Rodriguez comes out and just throws down with Rhea. And what I love to see, because those two are supposed to have a match for Rhea's championship at the next main roster pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. So that was a perfect way. She didn't really cost him the match. She's just like, nah, I'm gonna beat a bitch's ass. And that's exactly what happened. They go fighting off backstage. Dominic's like, mommy, don't leave me, which allowed Dragon Lee to like pick up the win here. And Dragon and Lyra win with that aside DDT from Dragon onto Dominic for the win was such a thing of beauty.
Yeah, God, it was gorgeous. It was like, oh, just like the minute it was set up, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the end. And it was well executed. It was so well executed. And and I have to, and he was like, man, Dragon Lee was like a howler monkey on Dominic. He was all over him. And maybe that's one of the great things of him being so much smaller is that he's able to like, zip and zap and zoom. But man, yeah, that final move there at the end, that had me screaming in the stands. I was like, that was a great takeout. I mean, it was a great takeout. Truly. This was such a good match. Such a good match.
It was, yeah, outside of the main event for me, I was just like, this was a nice surprise. I was like, this is actually pretty good. And I'm like, please give me more iterations of these four, like Dominic versus Dragon. Honestly, for me personally, I want more Rhea versus Lyra because they had a singles match a couple weeks ago and that was awesome. And then this was probably one of my favorite mixed tag matches in quite some time on WWE television. And I was like, all the right people were involved, everyone knew their part, and this felt like nobody had to carry their partner through this match. Like everyone pretty much was able to, you know, quote unquote dance with their respective partners. So the boys were great, the women were awesome, but the teams themselves also didn't feel like, you could tell somebody has more experiences carrying another person through. Like Dominic has improved so much since coming to WWE, and I was just like, this kid is gonna go far, and I'm excited. But man, this is a fun match. And then we get the promo get in, as I call it, because we got like a bunch of segments thrown together before we get to the next match. And even the next match is going to be quick because it wasn't even really a match, but let's break this down. So first we get Trick and Carmelo backstage. Trick tells Carmelo that's not how he wanted to go, but he's going to keep putting the work in. And Carmelo says he doesn't want another. I was like, ooh, are we like, this is interesting, because Carmelo tells Trick, he's like, look, man, I don't want another win with an asterisk on it. And like Trick looked visibly hurt by that statement, but he's just like, you know what, bro, it's all good. I accept this explanation. We tight, we good. I was like, ooh, here. I was like, yes.
That interaction felt so cringy. It was so like because when Trick came in there and was just being all gracious, and then Carmelo was like basically like going,
no, bro. Like, I'm like, are we slowly getting an ego trip on Carmelo? Because I'm kind of here for it. Like, to be the heel with the ego, like he has the talent to back it up, but his ego is so big. I'm like, ooh. I was like, ooh. And it's not even like Trick being the bad guy. I'm like, let Trick be the face and let Carmelo turn heel and just be like, not necessarily have to attack him, but it's just like, yo, bro, like if you can't, it's win or lose. There's no in between. There's no, you know what? I did my best. Nah, you either win or you don't.
See, this feels like a setup too. When I was watching this, I was like, this is a setup. They are setting Carmelo up for some big downfall, because I think what they're doing is they're making him this champion, making that ego grow, and he's going to start relying on his ego more. And I think it's gonna build and build and build and build, and then they're gonna like topple him so beautifully by somebody, whether it's Wesley or someone else. I think I think he's got a beautiful downfall coming, and I'm super excited for it.
Right. And then this little interaction for me, it made me excited because this is giving me shades of NXT North American champion Carmelo, because that's how he was. He's like, he thought he was God. And I mean, we all knew too. He's like God's green gift on this planet. And he's like Shawn Michaels' like love child here, like, because he's that talented and that's good. And man, and I was just like, ooh. I was like thinking back on it and seeing this, I was like, oh my gosh, Wes was right last week. Because like you were handpicked by management and Shawn Michaels to be the golden child. I wasn't that, and I had to earn my way here and fight to prove that I can be one of the chosen one. But I was just like, inherent talent versus hard work and dedication. I was just like, yes, if this is where it goes, it's fine. And then after this, you know, Barbie Quinn, as my co-host lovely calls Tiffany, she complains and talking about internet trolls telling her that Becky Lynch has never won the NXT Women's Championship, which is crazy because she is she's one of the most over women's wrestler right now on the main roster. That's neither here nor there. But she says that Becky is irrelevant because she keeps complaining of the atrocity that her promo was, because all the women came out and like they interrupted. And as champion, she has the inside scoop of what's going down. And she says that the other four who came out will have to, next week, are going to compete in a fatal four-way match where the winner becomes the number one contender who's going to face Tiffany for that title. And I'm like, here we go. This is exactly what I want. All four of those women I love. Yep. We're going to fight. It's going to be great. So this is going to be great. We go to commercial break. When we come back, I was very interested with this. So we get a recap of Thea losing against JC last week. And then, you know, we get that video segment. And then we cut to backstage where Thea's there and JC comes up and is like actually nice to her. I was like,
This was really sweet.
I was like, oh my God.
I know. And I was thinking, what's happening right here? I was like, this right here. Oh my God. If in my heart of hearts, in my little boy heart, if this turns out to be like a sugar and spice thing, holy God, I am on board for it. I am like, yes. I was like, if this is going where I want it to go, then I am here for it. Because JC came in there and was like, can I give you some advice? And first I was thinking, oh, she's going to be like, bitch, get away from me.
Because that's how her character has been. But then I was like, oh my gosh, this was a character turn I did not see coming.
This was like, I was literally like, oh, this is very touching moment. And then that's when my little boy heart was like, oh, please God, let this be a thing. Please let them turn into like a sugar and spice type of thing. And like take all the championships, because I would be fucking there for it. I would literally like fly to wherever they are and support them. Because
honestly, I was just like, it's an interesting character shift for both of them, because both of them prior to this interaction, like JC has been like the bitchy mean girl, like all that stuff, like the ahaha, I'm better than you. And then Thea has been the embodiment of like a puppy dog on too much sugar with the yelling and screaming. But she's also upset now at Chase U, because especially Andre Chase for throwing in the towel at Great American Bash. And then what happened last week, I was like, are you exposing the turnbuckle? And then I was like, okay, JC. So JC versus Thea is still going to be a feud. And like JC's going to say something mean. And she's like, you know what? People like us, sometimes it hurts when we lose. But, you know, people like us, we learn to get through it and we are better for it, is essentially what JC said. I was just like, character development, let's go.
It was beautiful. It was actually a really beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and not even me not knowing their background, their true backgrounds. I was like, this is something. This is not just someone being nice saying, hey, you know, it's okay, you know. No, something's going on here. And maybe that's just my conspiracy brain, but I'm just like, something is going on here. And if it is what I want it to be, then I am on board. Do you hear me out there, you know, wrestling world? I am on board with these two. Make them a team. Let them come together and conquer the world. I will be there for it.
Seriously.
Hell yes.
That was something special. And then speaking of things that were something, ? So we were supposed to get Baron versus Von Wagner. And so, you know, initially it starts off with like the way that some matches do, where like they don't even ring the bell, but as Von is making his entrance, Baron just blindsides and they start fighting each other, and then throws Von into the steel steps. They fight for a little bit, and then as Von gets ready to table Corbin, I still pick a thing. Then out of nowhere, also good job, camera guy, because I did not see this coming. Literally, Braun Breaker is just a blur and literally spears Von Wagner, literally like out of his proverbial wrestling boots. Like that shit looked like it hurt, Will. And I was just like, oh, somebody got the wind knocked out of. And Von's a big man to get speared like that too. So literally this match he was down. I was like, this match didn't even happen. I was like, are we getting a triple threat? Which in a weird way, I'm kind of here for.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
This is going to be crazy. And again, it continues storyline because Braun and Von had been kind of fighting for a little bit. And then Baron gets thrown into the mix. Yeah. I mean, we didn't have to hear him talk. So I was just like, okay,
that is true.
That's crazy.
But that is very true. But I figured that his mouth was going to get him in some trouble. And I think this kind of proved it. Because I don't think this is something he was expecting either.
No, and it kind of like his words came to haunt him, because last week, you know, the most dangerous place in all of America, the NXT parking lot, he mouthed off to Braun and says, look, if you got something to prove, come next week to Heatwave. And boy, Braun did, but not in the way that Baron wanted. And so it looks like these three are going to tangle it up the next couple weeks, and I'm okay with this. Then we get yep. Go
I
ahead.
was kind of like real quick. I was kind of like, is he coming in to like take Von Wagner out so that he could take on? Because that's what it kind of felt like. Kind of felt like he's like, I'm going to take you out so then I can step in and take him out. That's what it felt like to me. That he was basically trying to say that no, Von Wagner, you go sit down, boy. Let me.
That, you know what? That could also be a feud that could head into No Mercy instead of this triple threat. Baron versus Braun actually would be really good too. And Baron would be like, listen, bro, like, what the heck was all that? And Braun's like, bro, if you about that life, you better be ready, because. And Braun's whole thing is like, he's the leader of this dog pound. So it's like, woof, woof, I come with rabies. I'm going to bite you. Like, all kind of. Mm-hmm. Listen, I'm okay with this. This was great. And then honestly, like, we got like an extra deleted scene because Joe Gacy, the leader of Schism, cuts this promo on the Creed brothers telling them, boys, where's your morality? And he says that there's nothing that Rip and Jagger, which is the dyad, won't do to get their sister back. And the cage might keep the rest of the Schism out. But remember, the dyad will end it once and for all inside the steel cage. Like, literally saying is like, it's like, you think you're the monsters in the cage? You should be afraid, because the dyad are the real monsters. And I was just like, deleted scene. Yep. Like this is the Marvel movie, like, post-credit scene that we got in this whole storyline. And I was just like, Joe Gacy and his like sunglasses. Oh
God, I know.
So ridiculous, but man, I'm excited. Then we get like a cutaway shots of Wes and Carmelo walking up to do their entrances. I was like, main event time. I looked at the clock. I'm like, damn, this is gonna be a short main event, but that's okay.
I was too. So
as we get these entrances, we go to commercial, and I was like, more commercial promos, and then but then
at the beginning.
Yeah, I was just like, ugh, this is whack. And then I saw the two people who are on my screen. I'm like, okay, I'm not upset, because hey, boys. So we see Dijak cutting a promo against my man Eddie Thorpe. Hey Eddie, how we doing? And also Dijak, you can get it too. Just saying. But literally, Dijak cuts a promo on Eddie, and he says, "It's like, I'm coming for you." I was like, yes, give me more Eddie versus Dijak. I love this feud. They're gonna fight. Yes. It's gonna be great.
I want to see these two men sweaty all over each other.
That's hot.
Truly. Oh yeah, it is. I was like, oof, oh.
Yes.
That is definitely wet dream material.
Yes. And then before the main event, we get the bumpers, as we call them in the business, where commentary runs through everything that happens next week. And honestly, next week's show kind of looks amazing, because we get the Creed brothers and the dyad in a steel cage match. We get that fatal 4-way match between the women, and the winner will go on to face Tiffany, which I'm probably going to assume happens at No Mercy. But, you know, honestly, I am okay with either one of those four winning to face Tiffany. Though low key, I want to see Gigi fight Tiffany, but I'm honestly, I'm actually okay. Because normally, like, when they have these big, like, multi-women matches, I'm like, ugh, there's like, I want like one person to win. And then I'm looking at these four, I'm like, honestly, I am okay with either one of them winning. And I was just like, I'm fine with it. And then we get the little graphic of Noam Dar holding the Heritage Cup, and it's just like, this will be an international 8-person tournament. So it's like, oh, so we're going to bring all the foreign wrestlers in NXT in. And I'm like, I'm okay with this. And then I'm thinking, I was like, okay. So I think the finals are probably going to be Tyler Bate versus Nathan Frazier. And one of them, or something's going to happen where it turns to a triple threat at some point. I don't know how triple threats work in the NXT UK Heritage Cup. So, because we've never done it before. But that, honestly, that'd be kind of amazing. But next week's show looks good. So the tournament will start next week, and the winner will go on to face Noam for the Heritage Cup at No Mercy. Then, even though this was short, we get to the main event for the NXT Championship. Challenger Wesley taking on Carmelo Hayes. Man, they only got 8 minutes, but my God, they packed so much into this match.
Man, I know. I was very like, oh, we only have 8 minutes, guys. What are we going to do? I was like, it's going to be short and it's going to be disappointing. Oh my God, could I be wrong? It was so good. I was literally on the edge of my seat that whole freaking match.
So
I
where,
wasn't,
yeah.
I knew who was going to win. I kind of knew that because I know that Wes is too young. He's not, inexperienced guys. And but man, that match was so good. It was so good.
Right. So, fun fact, both Carmelo and Wes they've been wrestling for quite some time. And even more of a fun fact, Wes has actually been wrestling longer than Carmelo has. Like, Wes was actually on Impact Wrestling as part of a faction for quite some time, like in the 2010s. And then him and his tag team partner got signed to NXT. And then there was a whole situation where they were tag champs, but then his partner, like there were some allegations which turned to not be untrue, but WWE didn't want to risk it. So they fired his tag team partner. They stripped Wes of the tag team championships. And so then he was getting jobbed out to everybody and was on a losing streak. And then is when he slowly started racking up solo wins. So literally, Wes is speaking truth. He's like, I had to fight for this spot right here. I'm like, yes, you did. And I was witness to every single stage of that. But okay, there was a whole lot of stuff that was great. But man, when Wes got put on the table and Carmelo from the second rope did like that springboard back dropping into the table on top of Wes, I was just like, move of the night, 10 out of 10, best match ever. And I was surprised. I was like, this is like an 8-minute match, but like we got a commercial break all of a sudden. I was just like, this is really weird, but all right. It was, but oh my gosh, that they went off. And then Wes coming in with the cardiac kick and he hits Carmelo, but Carmelo rolls out of the ring. And then, oh my goodness, Codebreaker. Then on the floor, a fadeaway attempt turns into a springboard backsplash, which is where they went through the announcer table. The cardiac kick once again, but Mello rolls for cover. They're both on the floor. Ref is counting. Hayes gets back in the ring. Lee gets in only for Mello to line him up to pin him for the win. And I was just like, damn. I was like, this was an 8-minute marathon, and this was fucking fantastic. What my hope is that we get a rematch at No Mercy where they can go longer. I was just like, give them 30 minutes. Can you imagine 30 minutes of Wes and Carmelo, like anything and everything that they do?
If it's as intense as those 8 minutes are, then I'm here for it. Because oof. Wow. I literally, I was on the edge of my seat the whole match, the whole 8 minutes. And I was just like, and I honestly, I believe, yes, I think Carmelo has, he has more experience than Wes does, but I thought for the most part they were pretty evenly matched. Wes was a little weaker because I think they're trying to make him because he's the elder one and blah blah blah. But I thought the match overall was just, it was intense, and very evenly matched, I thought. And I loved everything that they did in it. It was so good. It was a great way to end the night.
Yeah, I will say, like, I'm actually kind of glad no shenanigans, like no Trick. I thought Trick was gonna come in and run in and like give Carmelo that win with the asterisk, but no, Carmelo beat Wes clean, and I was just like, you know what? I hope we get a rematch, and if not, like, and this is my prediction. There are so many different routes they can go with this. If we can get a rematch of Carmelo and Wes, a triple threat by throwing Ilya into the mix, or if you really wanted to go nuts at No Mercy, make it a fatal 4-way by adding Dijak into the mix. If you add those 4 men in the ring and you give them 20 to 25 minutes to just kill each other, honestly, like, and this is really funny because Wes and Ilya are still a part of like my top 3 matches this year because both of them were involved in that fatal 5-way for Wes's North American Championship at Stand and Deliver. My God. Oof. If I could find the match, I'm gonna send it to you. I'm like, you need to watch this because this shit was crazy. I was like, it was intense, but man, honestly, like normally I'm kind of like super down on these special TV shows half the time. I was like, okay, it's just like giving us something like like an appetizer sampler of what we could possibly getting at the next pay-per-view. But honestly, even though like you said, a lot of the bits and pieces, like the flow was kind of chunky, for the most part, every single thing tonight kind of hit the mark to some extent. Some stronger than others, but honestly, match of the night for me probably goes to the main event, but that might be my bias. Promo of the night is, I'm gonna cheat and give it a tie between the Ava Rain saga that we got and that women's like promo into the free for all battle beatdown was also probably it. And just as a side note, Will went all crazy during that women's segment. That was me during the main event where I needed a cigarette afterwards. But man, I mean,
Yeah.
those were my favorite parts. So before we get into the rating, Will, what were your favorite parts? What are your overall final thoughts?
So the main fight was fantastic. That would be probably my highlight match of the night. Absolutely. Followed closely by the Dominic Rhea Dragon Lee Lyra fight, because that one was very good too. My favorite promos would probably be the Ava Ivy saga. and then of course my highlight moment of the night is the women's promo where we get the slap to the face or the punch to the face. And
Roxanne throwing elbows. It was great.
oh yeah, it was great. Oh my god, it was so good. Um so my overall thoughts of the whole evening is like, yes, it was chunky, but I agree that everything made sense. It didn't flow as fluidly as like last week's did, but that's okay. Like I said, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just had a different structure, different feel. I think that um, the Ava Ivy fight should have been first of the evening, and they should have moved the Ilya and
Trick Max.
Yeah, Trick. Sorry,
Mhm.
they should have moved that one like towards the middle somewhere. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, when it first started, I was sort of like, oh god, because they started with that match, and I was just like, even though it turned out pretty good towards the end. At the beginning, though, it was just slow, and the you know and Ilya's entrance was so anticlimactic. Trick's entrance was so anti. I mean, it was so like eh. And then it got better, but I think they should have moved that towards the middle somewhere. And I don't want to say it's a throwaway match, but it felt like it because it wasn't set up properly. I mean, I don't think it was set up properly. I think it should have been like more theatrical. They should have done more lights and cool introductions and set this up as something where it's going to hold my attention, because in theater, if you don't get your audience within the first 15 seconds, you'll lose them. And that's what this kind of felt like to me at first, because I was sort of like, oh well, okay, well, that was anticlimactic, and I was sort of him hawing around at that point, and I was like, okay, I gotta watch this fight. And then it started getting better. But yeah, that was probably be my biggest critique of the evening, would be that fight shouldn't have opened it. They should have opened it with the women, um, because honestly and truly, the Ava Ivy fight and that sort of saga that they did through tonight, through the event, was almost like it was their focus. So they should have started, like you said earlier, they should have started it with that fight, and then maybe then have Ilya and then that fight, and then have one of the promos, and then fight with promo. That probably would have worked better for me. And I would have also probably spaced Ava and Ivy's promos out a little bit, because we kind of like even though it was brilliant and was fantastic, I think it happened too quickly, and so And I would love to have seen like that last clip, like maybe a little later, maybe right before the mismatch tag team, perhaps.
Right.
Right before the main event, somewhere before the main event, but not so far at the beginning. So anyway, but that's neither here nor there. It was still great. I thought the overall event was pretty good. But yeah, that main event fight was short and intense and incredible.
It was.
And I thought Wes lost very well.
Yes, you still make Wes look strong, and it still puts. And honestly, it still puts. You can still argue of him getting a rematch down the line if they wanted to. So I'm excited. So here at the Bi-Conics, we have unanimously adopted that when we rate our episodes, we use the mini scale. So mini is now forever living on as our rating scale. I mean, we've explained all our pros and cons, our likes and dislikes of this episode, but for NXT Heatwave, I, El Jefe, give this week's rating of Heatwave I give it a solid 8 out of 10. I was entertained. All the promos hit where they needed to. While the pace was kind of chunky, and you could have moved some matches around if you wanted to follow like an order in terms of energy and like as the card like differently. But ultimately, I think this was one of the more successful NXT like special TV tapings they do. So I give it a solid 8 out of 10.
And Oso Loco, I also give it an 8 out of 10 because I thought that, again, like you said, I thought that the consistency, and even though it was chunky in structure, it still told a really great story. And all the matches, even the Ilya one, all the matches were good. And then the fight at the end, the main event, that one for me, just that fight alone, honestly and truly, probably should say I give it more of like an 8.5 out of 10, because that fight was like a 9.5, 10, because it was so good. And I think so. I'm going to take it back and say 8.5, just because of that match kind of elevating it. But yeah, I have to agree with you. I thought the overall event was pretty damn good, actually.
And unfortunately, we've come to the end of this week's edition of El Jefe and El Oso Loco. But the beautiful thing is, we'll be back next week, and next week's NXT, we slowly build. Now that Heatwave is behind us, we spend the next 5 weeks building to No Mercy, which we're hoping that if schedules align, I can have El Oso Loco here be on the review for that, as well as some of my other folks that I'm trying to convince to watch NXT. But that is going to be it for us here. If you like what you see, make sure that you check out our other long form reviews here on the Bi-Conics Wrestling YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on all the social medias at BC WrestlePod, where you can see when notifications when these videos go live, as well as we started doing short little clips of our episodes and getting into internet arguments. We made it, you guys. We're getting comments and fighting with people in the comments section on the social medias. It's beautiful. We made it.
It's awesome. I honestly cannot believe that clip has gotten that many views. But I didn't realize I was making a hot take. I just
listen. There is no pleasing the internet wrestling community, but honestly, it's a beautiful thing because lots of people are taking a look and eyes are getting here and showing all the other work. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, if you are looking for something that is not TV wrestling review related, make sure to check out the Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast, where we pretty much do this, but we take it on a larger scale, just talk about wrestling in general. We talk about our likes, our dislikes, we fight, we cry. We may get a little bit horny sometimes as well, because there is a section where we talk about ogling all the wrestlers and we want them to slam us to the mat in various ways. So make sure to check that out to figure out.
I forgot to do my hotties for this.
Oh, okay. So before we log off, so let's do, and now the hotness scale with Will. So Will, who are your men? Who is the hottest man this week, and for whatever reason?
Okay.
And then who is your hottest female of the week?
Okay. So this was a little okay. I'm gonna take my boy Wes out of the running because he was my pick from last time. And this and I can't explain why, but my hot scale for the men's this event was Dar and Rowan Dar, and I can't tell you why. I have no idea. I was just when they were fighting, I was just sort of like, "Hello," and then because then like we got a close up of him, and I didn't notice this one, but he's hairy. He's got a hairy chest that he shaves, but he clips it, but it's hairy, and I was like, okay, that sewed it in. So yeah, he's my hotness for the men. For the women, this is a hard one because these ladies are gorgeous. And I have to also say, and I want this is a positive thing for I think contemporary wrestling, is that the women are of various shapes and sizes. They're not cookie cutter like they used to be back in my day. They are every shape, every size, and they're all beautiful. So if I have to pick one based on just beauty and gorgeousness, I would probably go with oh god, so hard. God, because they're all so gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna do my who I think aggressive and tie me up hotness would be and this is also a hard one too, but I'm all for Gigi. Oh my sweet Jesus. When she came in there, I was like, okay, yes, ma'am. I will hear you can tie me up and I'm good to go.
As we said earlier, Gigi hit me harder.
Yeah, seriously. So she's my definite like aggressive hot woman.
She's literally your Dami mommy.
And I would have to say, okay, so for my beautiful hot take for the ladies, I think it's gonna be Lyra. I thought she was so pretty, so gorgeous, and just when she was talking and just looking at it. So Lyra is my hotness lady of the evening, and Rowan Dar is my hotness man for the evening. So both of them are
Excellent
dreamy.
choices. Yes, excellent choices. And Lyra can also kick all the ass too, so which is a bonus. So I was just like,
Yep.
yes, love it. I was like, fight. I was just like, I was like, are you her bodyguard? No, she's mine. Like
Yeah.
she will keep me safe. I cannot fight for anything, but she will kick all the ass for me. I love it so much. Man,
That's it.
this was such a fun time. And of course, we will be back next week as we are on the road to No Mercy. But from us here at LF and the rest of the Bi-Conics boys here, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and until the next review, we'll see you later. But until then, adios, sayonara, and thanks for watching.
Bye bye.